made a difference to me, and I made a difference to her. Here is this woman lying in her hospital bed, barely able to speak, barely even conscious. But she made a point to say thank you. I had the opportunity to shadow in a hospital for a few weeks for one of my classes at school. And it was while I was with this woman that I was really reminded once again of the power and the beauty of service. There's so much bad going on in the world, and service reminded me that there's so much good that can be done. I'm a very religious person. It's always surrounded me. It's part of who I am. And that being said, I've grown up learning about the 2 great commandments, which may actually be familiar to a lot of you, because even if you're not religious, there are so many things and sayings that point out these 2 things. So the first is to love God, and the second is to love thy neighbor as thyself. Now I'm going to focus on this second one, love thy neighbor as thyself. When I first heard this, I thought, easy, I can do that. Just love other people, serve them. That's it, that's all you got to do. But there's more to it than that. It's not just love thy neighbor. It says love thy neighbor as thyself. There are 2 words there at the end. And those 2 words change the entire meaning of the whole phrase. It implies that in order to love another person, you've also got to love yourself. And I would argue that it works the other way around too. In order to love yourself, you've got to love others. So you may be wondering, how does this work? What is this relationship between the 2? How does loving myself help me love others, and how does loving others help me love myself? Well, let me ask you this first. Do you love yourself? Really, think about it. Do you love yourself? How much do you love yourself? I promise you that there's not one person on this entire planet who has complete, perfect love for themselves. There's just not. Yet we often think that we're the only ones. We're the only ones who struggle with loving ourselves. But reality check, we all do. So how do we better love ourselves? Well, my answer to that, love others. There was a study done by 2 men in 2012, one from the National University of Singapore and the other from Duke University. And they teamed up and they conducted this survey, this study, to observe the relationship between 3 types of well-being and volunteering. So these 3 types of well-being are first social well-being, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's our relationships with other people. It's how our social life plays into our well-being. Then there's hedonic well-being, which is a little less self-explanatory, but it's basically your happiness. That's really all it is. And then there's eudaimonic well-being, which is your sense of identity, and it's your sense of purpose. And you will notice that as I go through this study with you, I will focus the most on eudaimonic, so pay attention to that as well. In this study, they found that people who had higher volunteering status, higher volunteering hours, meaning that they went out and did a variety of things and went out to serve other people often, these people had higher senses of eudaimonic well-being. They felt a higher sense of purpose, and they felt a higher sense of fulfillment in what they were doing with their lives. Now, compared to eudaimonic well-being, there was almost no effect on hedonic or social well-being. Obviously, there's some, because when you help other people, it makes you happy, so there's hedonic. And when you help other people, you're building social skills and you're building relationships, so there's your social well-being. But in comparison to eudaimonic, your sense of identity and purpose, there was almost no impact whatsoever. So you see that by helping other people and by loving other people, those people who did that had more love for themselves. Now, how do you better love other people? It's the same thing. You gotta love yourself. In the same study, they found that people who had higher senses of all 3 types of well-being had higher volunteering hours and higher volunteering status. It wasn't just one sense of well-being, it wasn't 2, it took all 3 together to give you the best volunteering status and volunteering hours. It took complete love for themselves, for ourselves, to go out and love other people. So you see that it's this big chain reaction. When we love ourselves, we feel love for other people, and so we go serve them and help them, and as a result, they feel love for themselves. And so they want to share that with other people because it made them feel good, so they go and share it. It's a big chain reaction. So now that we understand this relationship between loving yourself and loving other people, how exactly do we go about doing that? And for that, I have 2 suggestions. The first is service. You've heard me talk about it this whole time. Service is one of the best things you can do to love other people and to love yourself. Nelson Mandela once said that the best thing you can do for another person is to serve them without expecting anything in return. And I want to emphasize that last part. When you serve, do not expect anything in return. Because the second you start doing that, it's not service anymore. You're doing it for yourself. That's not what service is. Service is for other people. And as a result, it will come back to you. So don't worry about the benefits you'll gain, because that's not what service is about. So when you serve, don't expect things in return. I also want to emphasize that the small things matter. We always hear, compliment other people, smile, hold the door open, and we just kind of set it aside like, okay, whatever. Cool, but it's important. The small things build up. I could go on forever about all of the small things people did for me that I now carry with me as a reminder that I am important. The small things build up. Imagine you've got a bunch of pennies. You start out with just one, it's just 1 cent. Okay. But as you continue to gain those pennies and add more, it becomes $1, becomes $5, $10, and it becomes this large sum. The small things build up into something much bigger that we often don't see, but it's there. So don't dismiss the small things when you go out to serve other people. My last suggestion is to learn to respect. If you haven't heard anything else in my talk today, I want you to hear this. It is completely, totally possible to respect somebody without agreeing with them. Let me say that again. It's completely possible to respect somebody and love them without having the same beliefs as they do. There's so much hatred and violence in the world, and it would all go away if we just found respect for other people. We naturally, as human beings, want to be right. We want everybody to agree with us. We never have any problems. That's that. But that's not how the world works. Sorry. That's not how it works. Find respect for other people, because when you respect somebody else, they will find respect for you. I have so many friends who believe completely the opposite things I do, but I love them. They're great, and they respect me back, because it's totally possible to love and serve and respect other people without agreeing with them. Now, I want to emphasize that service and respect are not the only ways to better love yourself and to better love others. Please don't feel like you're failing if you're not doing these things. There's so many other things that you can do. You can set goals, find hobbies, take time for yourself just to relax. Go spend time with your friends. There's so many things that you can do other than these two. I just encourage you to do those things, to make a list, make goals, and go out and actually do it. Because once we find love for ourselves and find love for others and find that balance between the two, we may not be able to change the whole world as much as we would like to, but we will be able to change people's worlds, including our own. Thank you.